Goeiemiddag, good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth. All around me I see frustration, and I looked all over till I found you. I sit and listen to your stories, and you're telling me, please don't worry. Love in this world you should know, and love in life is where you should go. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then love in life will guide you. I know that life outside is so.
Sorry guys, my system briefly shut down there. I'm not sure why, but we're back again. Good evening. I forgot my standard call cry, but hey, who cares? Now, tonight we've got Dr. Peter Hammond and Colyn Serfontein joining me, and we're going to be talking about South Africa. And guys, if you can see me properly and if you can hear me properly, please just press 1 in the side chat, because I've got a strange little message in my streaming software, so I just want to reassure myself that everybody can see me. Okay, now on Thursday, the 23rd of February this year, Dr. Peter Hammond received a container shipment and offloaded 18 pallets of World Missionary Press gospel booklets, over 4,200 boxes containing over 1.8 million gospel booklets in many African languages. The next day, ministers were already lining up to collect boxes of World Missionary Press booklets for their outreaches. Now, that's the sort of man Peter is. Quite an incredible fellow. Let's have a look at a little video before we get Peter and Colyn on. Here we go.
Today we are offloading containers. So the first container that we received this morning was a 20-foot container from Eagle's Nest. We have also now received the other 40-foot container, which is from World Missionary Press from the USA. Offloaded the materials, which we then transport from the front to the back here at the store.
Literature of Africa seeks to provide the Word of God from full Bibles all the way through New Testament Gospels into teaching materials, Sunday school materials, into tracts and evangelistic materials. As the literature comes in, it must be separated into what is brand new, what is old, what is organized. from the categorization, it gets to designation. We work out where is this going to go, which mission field, which country, and college or school in some cases. Much of Africa started back in 1982, really in the very beginning as Frontline Fellowship went across the border into Mozambique, off-road motorbikes, with World Missionary Press gospel booklets in Portuguese and Shangaan, in saddlebags of my motorbike, and New Testaments. So we took in over 1,000 Gospels and 100 New Testaments on the first mission into Mozambique, 1982.
Right, what an amazing man Dr. Peter Hammond is. I mean, absolutely quite extraordinary, and it's good to hear that he has apparently fully recovered from the stroke that he had a few weeks back, and of course our thoughts and prayers remain with him. Let me see if I can get Peter on, and then we'll get Colyn on as well. Here we go. Okay. And just looking at the side chat, if you've got questions you'd like to ask Peter or Colyn, please just drop them into the side chat for me.
The person you are trying to reach is currently unavailable.
Oh, okay.
Please leave a message after the tone. When you have finished, please hang up.
Hi Peter, it's Scott here. Can you Skype me as soon as you're able to? We're live here, and I'll get started with Colyn. But yeah, look, if you can Skype me as soon as you're online, and we'll just bring you into the conversation. Thanks, buddy. Bye for now. All right, now Peter's not there at the moment. I'm going to get Colyn on, and of course that's skid marks, and we'll just get the program started. Here we go. Hi, Colyn. How you doing, buddy?
I'm going all right, thank you.
Excellent. I can't see you.
Oh, you should see me, man. Then you must get glasses.
There we go. There we go. Now we see you. Now look, I just tried Peter, but for some reason he's not responding. He's always so reliable. A few weeks ago when we had that last time when Peter couldn't join us, just for the record, he had a stroke the night before, and that's why he wasn't able to join us. He was actually in hospital, but I'm sure that hasn't recurred. So let's just hope he Skypes us very shortly. Now, Colyn, I was in South Africa up until 8 days ago. I was in South Africa. I had 2 weeks in South Africa. And I saw a lot of things going pear-shaped in that country. And
Just a moment, Scott.
Yeah.
Are we now live?
Yeah, we're live. Absolutely.
Just a second. I just want to close my office door.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. All right. Just while we're waiting for Colyn to do that.
No, you can talk. I can hear you, but you can't see me.
Yeah, that's okay. Welcome to everybody on the side chat. I hope you enjoyed tonight's discussion. I'm sure that Peter will be joining us very shortly. He's not available at this moment in time. Okay, now, Colyn, as I mentioned a moment ago, I was in South Africa until about 8 days ago, and I had 2 weeks there. And one of the things that really struck me, because I hadn't been in South Africa for 12 years, was this sense of entitlement. For example, I went to this one resort and had lunch there, and there were a group of Africans being photographed next to this dam. All these ladies, beautifully dressed, and one African lady said to the other African lady, "We are very important people." And I just overheard that comment. I thought, well, that kind of sums up this sense of entitlement that the younger black African nations seem to have. And I spoke to an African at the Botanical Gardens in Krugersdorp, the Walter Sisulu, and he was saying to me that the in the townships, the Africans under the age of 35 have this feeling that they are entitled to everything that the white population have, and basically through indoctrination. As someone living in South Africa, have you picked up on some kind of a perceived change in the attitude of the younger blacks towards the minority white population?
Yeah, look, I had a fairly fiery debate the other day on Twitter about this when they were busy with all those strikes and things. And I said to the guy, it was incidentally, it's a black guy, and I said to him, you know, the problem that we are sitting with now is that these youngsters that are causing all this mayhem wave of the Sasa babies, they grew up without a father, many of them even without the mother, because, you know, the grandmother are looking after the children, while the mother is out on the street trying to find the next installment on her child grants, you see. And this might sound very crude, but this is the reality. And I have heard many, and I've listened and I've read many black guys, incidentally, Julius Malema himself, where they were the child grant thing. Because that child grant is being perceived as an income stream. And instead of them thinking about the future of those children, they just think about that grant. And then you get this thing that these kids grow up without fathers, and they are totally undisciplined. It's a weird generation. And the black people themselves, many of them, more of the older black people themselves, are extremely upset about it. Because these kids are without constraints. They don't know the meaning of the word respect. I mean, I had an interesting interlude with one on Twitter. I think it was on Friday. He shot his mouth off about how much he loved Putin. And I checked his profile on Twitter. And in his bio, he says, I hate white people. And I said to the guy, listen, you should not be tweeting when your brain is on stage 8 of intelligence shedding. But let me just ask you this. What do you think will Putin say when he sees your bio? Because obviously you don't realize that he is a white man. You know, so stupid things like that. And the black population has sat back quietly and allowed this government-driven breeding program to create a time bomb in their own communities. Because those uncontrolled black youngsters, we see it, and if I say we, I talk about the white people, we see it and we see them and perceive them immediately as a danger, and we are alert and we watch out for these things. But they live in the black communities, and the mayhem that they create there is unbelievable. So, you know, I've said it many times to my wife. I said to her, but you must understand that the black communities themselves are also suffering under this. And this is a government program. There's no rules. in one of my brickmark I said, the least they can do is say, okay, because I'm the first guy to say to you that they can't stop that thing tomorrow. That will be absolute mayhem. But they can say, listen, from 1st of July, or be reasonable. Give them a reasonable time. 9 months from now. We're sitting here now, end of March. So, from the 1st of January 2024, you will not get a child grant if you don't have matric. And you will only get one child grant. That's it. That will already make a huge difference, Scott.
Yeah. Well,
this undisciplined batch, this is only, and you must understand the nightmare here. There is we are now dealing with the first wave of adult SASSA babies.
Yeah.
There's about 15 million of them in the pipeline.
Wow.
And they grow up without adequate education. There is not enough education facilities for them. There's no parent supervision to ensure that the kids at least do their schoolwork. These kids are out of control at the schools. They are the ones that are burning the schools down. They are the ones that are plundering the schools. They are the ones that attack the teachers. They are the problem. But what can we say? We can say, if you just dream of mentioning it, you're being accused of being a racist.
You know what I find interesting, Colyn, is that the older black Africans, and like that one I spoke to at Walter's Sisulu Botanical Gardens, they look back at the apartheid days and say things were so much better then. And this new generation, which are the younger ones who we're talking about, have got no idea what life was like back then. So they don't have something to actually compare to. Now, you mentioned about the explosion we're talking about here when it comes to the younger black population in South Africa. Do you think that the fuse which has been lit is the economic freedom fighters and Julius Malema's explosive rhetoric? Because this guy is completely out of control.
He plays an important role. He makes a huge contribution. And I blame the president of South Africa for that, because in the 70s, you get up onto a stage and you fire a gun. You will not walk off that stage unless you are bangled, and you will go to jail. But there's no law enforcement, there's no political will. Because Malema has committed treason at numerous occasions on TV. And this useless president just let him get away with it.
Well, this useless president has just been given a free pass by the public protector when it comes to all that cash stashed in his furniture at Pala Pala. I don't know if you heard that. Doesn't that say something about the judicial system in South Africa? When I
For sure.
Just quickly, when I spoke to Davie Ruut, who's the economist, just a couple of weeks ago in Pretoria, he said to me that Ramaphosa should resign over that, because he made the point, if he had had that amount of US dollars at his house and been caught with it, he would be behind bars. So clearly there are two sets of standards here. Your comments?
For sure. I mean, Scott, you must understand. I don't talk about my history, but I was, in my young days, I was deeply involved in the judicial system on the state side. And I mean, the professionalism and the discipline of those years were absolutely scary. The other night I was in a chat with somebody and I said to the guy, you must understand, we were talking about censorship. But I said to the guy, yes, because I made this statement that in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, let's leave the 90s out. Let's talk 70s and 80s. South Africa was a perfect example of a working socialist state. And he said to me, you're damn crazy, you can't say that. And it was black guy. You can't say that it was a socialist state. And I said to him, you know what? Think about the following. The bulk of the population were employed either by some SOE, and a vast portion of the population was directly employed by the state, and there was in the private sector, the big employers in the private sector were big and operated because of their ties to the state. Let's talk about, and I'm going to use a word that doesn't exist, but let's talk about unstate or non-state businesses. They were really few and far in between. The biggest employers, non-state employers, were the farming community. But in the formal community, everything was tied to the state in some way or another. I mean, we had a situation that you get out of matric and you go to you want to go to varsity and your parents cannot afford it. You would make an application for a bursary, and then you don't get the bursary because you're not bright enough for the bursary. They say, but we can give you a government loan, a study loan. And the conditions of the loans were simple. For every year you have the loan, you had to work for the state. So if you did a 4-year degree, after qualification, you had to spend 4 years in the government service. Now, what did that do? That ensured that the government service, the government employees were well-qualified people with lots and lots of professionals available to the state. And that played a major role in the old government having a very professional government service, very socialist. But we did have capitalist sectors in the country, but it was just well balanced, all balanced by the state. Do you agree with what I'm saying?
Sure, absolutely. Now, look, just talking about employment at state-owned enterprises and at the government and so on, we all know that black economic empowerment has basically destroyed the minority populations in South Africa.
Yeah, the economy. It destroyed the economy.
And also...
Because,
yeah, go ahead.
Because the other problem is that the BEE has butchered the small and medium businesses. Because the moment that you are in a bracket of a certain performance, you are forced by the labor laws to do certain BEE stuff in your business. And what that did, and I'm talking about personal experience, in the late 80s, I was employing about 600 people. Whereas by the late 90s, I was employing 8 people. And that happened to many places where you had a situation where a family business would be growing and expanding, and as the children joined in, it grew bigger and bigger, and it became big enterprises, but it was family enterprises. Now, with all the BEE stuff, what happens is, instead of the father expanding his business to accommodate the son, he says, if he's a clever father, he says, what we're going to do is you're going to open your own business. Yeah, we'll be working together under the blanket and that, behind the scenes and so forth. But you must be an individual on your own so that we can keep you out of the BEE net and we keep my business out. Things like that, you know, just as a matter of interest. If you look at small businesses, the small businesses, the the Americans call it the mom and pop businesses, played a massive role in the American economy. Something like 98 million people were employed in that economy. And the COVID thing destroyed I don't think people realize the number of small businesses that were destroyed by the lockdowns. So that was pulled out of the economy. So that's why you see unemployment where it is. Small business are the biggest and fastest way to create employment. Now, in the apartheid time, there was a thing, I must now try and remember, KSOK, dink ek, something like that. But it was a Small Business Development Corporation. And that government department was solely focused on making it possible for entrepreneurs to start their own businesses. Because small businesses, and the apartheid government knew that, but you know, they had intelligent, qualified people in the management systems. Realized that there's nothing that can create jobs as fast as small businesses.
Right.
And I've given the example in another debate. I was also with a black guy, and I said to him, now, just think about this for a moment. You decide tomorrow, there's a taxi stop 100 meters from your home, and you see the people standing there waiting for their transport every day, every morning, and in the evenings you see them come back. And you decide, all right, you're going to put up a little stall here, and you're going to sell something to eat, a bunny chow or something like that, and a mug of coffee. And you start that. And the first week or two, you only sell, maybe say you use a dozen of loaves of bread and 2 bottles of coffee, and that's it. But you realize, but if you have somebody that help you, you can basically double your turnover. And you bring someone in to help you. And by 6 weeks down the track, you've got 3 people working there with you. And you can't take a breather on peak times. Now just take that and then extrapolate that through the country. Joe's coffee service coffee and bunny chow. And you take it right through the country, and 1,000 Joes jump up because there is opportunity for 1,000 to jump up. Within 6 months, all the Joes with their coffee are giving employment to 3,000 people. Now, who can create 3,000 jobs?
Look, when it comes to jobs, I just want to share my perception on what I saw, because as I said, I haven't been back to South Africa for 12 years. So going back there are things that I noticed, and probably the biggest thing I noticed is that if there was no white supervision, then either things did not get done or they were done very poorly. And I'll give you an example of that. I went to a few resorts for a couple of nights just to, enjoy the fresh air and the beauty of the area called Muldersdrift. And two of those resorts, one was called Kloofzicht and the other was called Glenburn. Now, at Glenburn, there was a white fella who was there when I arrived at lunchtime on Sunday, and he was basically supervising everything, and the food was fantastic, the service was fantastic. With the white guy there, everything was running absolutely smoothly. The rooms were good, everything was great. And Glenburn is probably about a 3.5-star resort. Compare that to Kloofzicht, which is a 5-star resort, okay, in the same area, and there was no white supervision, and the difference was extraordinary. I'll give you a few examples. They had smart TVs in the bedrooms. I was in room 106 at Kloofzicht, and this smart TV, when you turned it on, you had the option of looking at several different things. None of them worked. None of the TV things worked at all, except for the ability to upload videos. And what I'd noticed from Glenburn, for example, is that I was the only white tourist at that resort, and there were probably about 100 people staying there. Just for the record. Now, at Kloofzicht, what I noticed when I turned on the television and was, flipping through it and got to this video side, some of the guests who had been in that room had actually made porn videos. These aren't white people. This is black people. They'd made porn videos and they put them on this bloody TV. Now, no, there was no sort of control over that by the hotel or by the management there. When I went to go and get a cocktail at the bar at Kloofzicht, the barman was sort of hiding in the background, and I had to call out, and he came out. And I think he was a bit pissed off that I'd interrupted him. He might have been on the internet or something. And when I asked for a cocktail, he said, "I only accept cash." So I couldn't have a bar tab. He only accepted cash. And these little things that happened, you start asking questions about why there is not a white person supervising, because without
Can
that
I
white...
interrupt you here?
Yeah, no, just one more example I want to give you, then you can interrupt. One more example. On the way to Hartbeespoort Dam, the potholes on that road were shocking. And I saw, as we were driving down, I saw two white guys with a few black guys working on potholes. And I stopped and I spoke to the white guys, and the video's actually up. I put it up last night with our live stream. And the white guy said, "We have to do this because the municipality isn't." So my point is that without white supervision, the wheels seem to fall off very quickly. And then you've got a situation where you've got black economic empowerment, where the whites are basically excluded from the picture, and That's why so many things are falling apart in South Africa. Over to you.
I agree with you on that. And I mean, the tragic part is that many people are 100% aware of it, that is the big reason for the huge collapse. You see, Scott, but let's just come back to that two resorts that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Now, you may not be aware of this, but you were there at Muldersdrift.
Yes. Now, Kloof, just for the record, is a 5-star hotel. It's a 5-star hotel,
yes.
Kloof. Yeah.
Listen, what is the problem? Many of those establishments, and it is the same with the upper class guest houses in Joburg. Those establishments, they don't make their money from guests that sleep there. They make their money from these guys that come in for sex, and they rent the room, they pay the full rate, but they only occupy the room for 2 or 3 hours, or 2 hours, or an hour, things like that. And now, what you are saying about your experience in the bar, were there many people in that bar?
I was the only one.
Exactly. Because those guests are up there in the rooms doing their thing, and then they get in their cars and they go. So some of those establishments will rent out a room 5 times a day.
Wow. I never
knew
thought
people
of that.
that were in the guest house business in Roodepoort.
Yeah.
And the guy had 5 guest houses. Not a guy, a woman. She had 5 guest houses. But the one was exclusively for short-term rentals. And she said to me, she's got 5 rooms in that place. But there were days that she would book those 5 rooms out. That at the end of the night, when she cash up, she has accommodated 25 couples in 5 rooms.
Wow.
So that is something that you must understand. And the fact that it's a 5-star, don't let that fool you.
So hang on.
At a stage in my life, I traveled a lot. I'm one of those guys, I'm not one of those guys. I have always had the philosophy about traveling, that I will not go overseas and before I have seen my whole country. And here at my age now, I can tell you with an open face that there is very few towns in South Africa that I have not been to, and there is very few noteworthy eating places, guys that make traditional food, that I have not eaten at. I know my country. I've traveled this country. I've done, just on my motorbikes, I did just short of 1 million kilometers.
Wow.
And it is long distance traveling. It's not commuting. And I have done on cars. I can't remember, but there was a stage of my life that I was doing 100,000 kilometers a year. But the fact of the matter is, I've seen the country. And recently, the last time I traveled was about 5 years ago. And I said to my wife when he came back from that trip, that's the end of it. It is now just too risky to be out on the road and to sleep in these guest houses in the small towns and things like that. The risk is too big for me. I'm not going to take it anymore. And then the conditions of the roads is a hell of a nightmare. And then the lawlessness on the roads. And you're in a situation, I can't travel through a scenic area and just pull off the road and take a smoke break and take some pictures and drink a Coke and chat under a tree. You can't do it because you barely stopped and a combi stops and 10 guys flies out of the combi and it's all over. You know, that type of cut, because that is South Africa currently. I'm a guy that is a fanatical analyst, and to me, the risk was just getting too big. And it doesn't even upset me. It's a reality, and I have to live with it. But the dilapidation and collapse of services, I've said, when the blacks took over in 94, they inherited a super functional government service, one of the best government services in the world. All they had to do is say, okay, guys, you have now been providing service to 30% of the population. This service must now go to 100% of the population. Every person in a managerial position must take 2 blacks on and train them. And in that way, they could have expanded the government service, but still retained the professionalism.
Right.
But no, they were clever. As you know, there's guys that tweet that blacks are the only race in the world that's got natural intelligence. They don't need to study for anything, and crap like that. And you know, and they got rid of the white people. And I have spoken to blacks in managerial positions, and the guy says to me, you know, my biggest frustration is I am in this job, but actually I don't know what I have to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to do it. I'm just here. I'm sitting here. Now you walk past my office and you think that I'm sitting here and loafing. But that's the fact. We don't know what to do. Nobody trained us. Nobody taught us. And he said to me, my dad worked with the Department of Justice. And he put me and my sister through university. But when he tells me the rigorous training programs that he had to go through to get promoted, I can just shake my head. And that is one of the reasons why when a guy calls me a racist, I say, fuck you. Because I'm not a racist, but I'm not stupid and I'm not blind. And there are limitations in people's abilities. And there are, and I said to my friend of mine, my neighbor, the other night, we were talking about some incident here in town, and I said to him, you know what the reality is this? There is white people that I will not allow onto my land. I don't want any part of them because they are barbarians, basically. So it is not a race thing. It's a cultural thing.
That is so true. That is so true. Carry on.
Unfortunately, the problem that we are sitting with this, let's call it now, just for the sake of this show, I'm going to refer to them as the Sasa babies. And you know what I'm talking about when I say Sasa babies. But they are very vocal on the social media, but they've got absolutely zero reference to what it is like to walk into a government department, say for instance Home Affairs, and everything is functioning. You walk in, you land in a queue with 3 or 4 people, and 20 minutes later you walk out with everything done that you needed to get done. You will go from there to a hospital, to one of the state hospitals, and you can get a fucking heart transplant there. That is, you know, the ridiculous thing. My wife, she's highly qualified. I mean, 4 or 5 degrees and post degrees, and the hell knows what. She's an academical monster. And she was in nursing. And we were talking about it the other night, that there were sections in HF Verwoerd Hospital that were kept in condition for the state president. Now imagine that. The state president goes to a public hospital when he's ill. You could go to Baragwanath Hospital and you could get an open heart surgery done for R1. R1. That's what you had to pay.
Yeah.
Open heart surgery. And these militants don't have reference to that. They only know totally dysfunctional government services, totally dysfunctional clinics, total dysfunctioning hospitals. So their reference framework is dysfunctional. They talk about things that they know nothing about. In that argument that I was on Twitter, the black girl, and I handled it in my skid mark, I think the one of this morning or the one of yesterday, the Sunday Funday thing, it was about apartheid and what it was like under apartheid. And this black girl made the statement that, but were the blacks happy under apartheid? And the black guy answered her, and he said to her, under apartheid, my father had a job, a decent salary, we had a house, we had a car, and we did not have to survive on 350 Rand a month. And that's from a black guy.
Now, look, I want to pick up on a couple of things you said, because, there's so many areas that you covered here. And I just want to start off by showing everybody a book that I read when I was flying to South Africa and coming back from South Africa. And it's called Opening Apartheid's Pandora Box. And it's an amazing book. It's by Mike Smith. It's over 500 pages long, very easy reading, all very well referenced. And it just exposes the entire lie when it comes to apartheid. Now, one of the things that I noticed, I want to get back to my trip to South Africa. And one of the things that I noticed is how dangerous. You mentioned the roads and you couldn't stop to have a look at the view because you might be attacked while you stopped. One of the things that I noticed is that during load shedding, and now we're moving towards Eskom, is that, Eskom as a start, to use the word that you brought up, it's dysfunctional, completely dysfunctional. And when you drive around the streets when there's load shedding, obviously the lights don't work, the traffic lights don't work. And some of those intersections are just bloody dangerous. It's worse than the old bumper cars. They used to go around with these bumper cars and bump each other. There's one intersection.
Exactly.
There's one intersection near Pinehaven where there are 3 lanes coming in from 4 different directions. And when there's load shedding, it's chaos on that road. And there's one serious accident every week on that road. And who's surprised? But the thing I want to get to now is Eskom, because when we talk about dysfunctional, I think this sums it up. I'm going to share a screen with you, and I'm just going to tell everybody what this is all about. This was sent to me by someone who works at Eskom. And what it is a chart which shows the issues that they have at Eskom. And I'll just explain to you what the chart is all about. The red line that goes from left to right is the bad line, if I can put it that way. The blue line is how much electricity Eskom has got available. Okay, so you can see how it goes. It varies from day to day. The yellow line at the bottom is maintenance, the amount of maintenance that is going on at Eskom. And the blue vertical lines are the amount of electricity that's actually used. And the black line at the top is the actual demand for electricity in South Africa as basically projected by Eskom itself. So you can see when you look at this chart how there is a shortage of electricity every single day of the year, apart from this little area here in 2023. Now, the projection is, and this is from Eskom itself, the projection is, and again, here's a very extensive spreadsheet, is that by winter this year, you're going to be looking at level 10, or in fact, Marlene sent me let me just see if I can pull that up.
Yeah, I saw those things, and they're talking about 11, or stage 11.
It's stage 11, yes. Now have a look at this. This is where electricity is moving. Okay, so that's a bad day, stage 10. This is actually
Just
where...
a moment, I can't see the image yet. It's only black here.
Oh, okay. Well, let me just load that. Sorry, I'll load that image up for you. Hang on. I'll just go to that one and share that image for you. Okay, let's get the other image. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I think this is it. Okay, let's see if that works. Yes, there we go. Okay, do you see that image now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just go to the important part. These are projections over here. Okay, going into winter, but this is, the yellow is the actual usage. The blue is with load shedding, what they've made available. The red is the dangerous line. This is where things become very hairy, because if they didn't have load shedding, they would knock out the entire grid. And the black line is their projections and how much electricity is required. And you can see as it goes forward, it gets a bit higher during winter. Now, this little dotted blue line here is a projection of where electricity availability is going. And you can see it's going down fast. So what they're actually suggesting is that by winter, there's going to be a huge problem when it comes to the amount of available electricity to service business and the community in South Africa. Now, we already know that they're on level 4 or level 5, and they've got like 3 breaks of 2 hours. By the way, that purple is the maintenance down there. That's the amount of maintenance that is taking place, and you can see it sort of cuts off at just about a few days ago. But you can see a huge amount of maintenance is taking place just to try and keep the grid happening. And it's getting worse. So the projections are that by winter this year, Eskom is going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Do you have any comments about what you're seeing there?
Okay. I have spoken about it in my skid marks and so. The thing is this, Scott. Right from the onset of this current load shedding wave, I said that there is a serious, my opinion, there's a serious political component here. Because they came out of the lockdowns. And all of a sudden, they had to relinquish that absolute power and control they had over the population. And the load shedding miraculously exploded onto us. Now, there's a lot of population control with load shedding.
Yeah.
Or don't you see it like that?
Now, just can I interrupt for a second, Colyn, because unfortunately I forgot to actually share the right screen when I was talking about the charts. So just for everybody watching, these are the charts that I was supplied by someone who works at Eskom. And what you're looking at here is the blue vertical lines are the amount of electricity that was actually used day by day. You can see how it varies. And where the blue line
was showing, it's not showing properly.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I've got to show it to everybody else at the moment. Let me share it with you too. Okay, let's just do that. Get everybody in the same page. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is a page that I'm sharing with everybody. You see it now?
I'm waiting for it.
Okay, tell me when you see it.
Here it is, yes.
Okay.
I've got it.
All right. Now, the blue vertical lines are the amount of electricity that are used in South Africa, basically during certain days. You can see how it varies. Now, the blue line is the available electricity. Okay, you can see where Eskom is improving if the blue line goes up. The red line is where Eskom is getting worse. That is actually the difference between the amount of electricity required and the amount of electricity available. The yellow line at the bottom is actually showing the electricity that's not available either because of issues or maintenance or whatever it might be. Now, the black line is the forecast of how much electricity is required in South Africa. And you can see that Eskom falls far short of that figure. This is why there's load shedding. Now, the second chart, which I showed, and I'm just going to show it to people again, because I didn't actually show it to them the first time. Let me just get that up. The second chart, I'll just get that on for you as well, Colyn. Okay, I'll just get that off, and here we go. Okay, this is the one I'm looking for. Start sharing. Okay, tell me when you see it.
Yes, I see it.
Okay, so we'll just go to the top, and just like the first chart I showed, you've got these same little plots of where electricity is going in South Africa. Now, the critical forecast line is this one here, the dotted blue line. And you can see the amount of electricity available is going south. And you can see again, this is your maintenance in purple down here, which is taking a huge amount of the electricity from the grid. But look where this blue dotted line is going. It's going down and down and down. And the stage 10 is up here. That's where they've got to go to stage 10. So what they're saying is by winter this year, there's going to be a huge crisis with Eskom's ability to service the country. You can see
Can I
how...
interrupt you now, Scott?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I can see where you're going with this. Now, as I've said, it is my opinion that there's a lot of political shenanigans going on in the power supply. Now, if you just think about it, the writer fingered a senior government person as being in charge of the syndicates that are in operation in Eskom. You remember that?
Yep. Well, look, can I just mention that I believe that David Mabuza, who is the deputy president, is actually one of the leading figures in these cartels which are wrought in Eskom.
He's the main player in those cartels.
Yes.
And he suddenly disappeared and evaporated off the scene because the ANC has realized that load shedding is going to pull the government down. That's what's going to happen. The government is going to fall because of load shedding. Eskom is going to pull the government down. What they did here is they installed their criminal buddies in Eskom with clear instructions on how to manipulate the power availability. But those criminals that were, let's call it, promoted into those positions, true to their tradition, they became greedy. And they realized, yeah, but there's a lot of money to be made here. And they acquired a life of their own. And all of a sudden, the politicians say, hey, slack down. Pull back on the load shedding, it's getting too rough. And they said to the politicians, up yours. We're making money and you're not going to interfere in this. And the politicians lost control of the criminals. And it is really bad. Now, the Hawks in Mpumalanga got a new guy in charge, a white guy, apparently a terror on wheels, hell on wheels. And he is busy dismantling these syndicates, and they are ruthless with them. So that is what's happening and going on in the background with Eskom and the criminals. But there's another thing that we must keep in mind here. There was a lot of rumors about the writer. And I made a tweet about it, and I did some mention it in one of my skid marks. And I'm beginning to get the feeling that he was not the angel that we were led to believe. And there was a few things that he said and that he has done that didn't gel for me. But the best alert light for me was directly after Cyril came back from Biden. Cyril came back, and within a week after Cyril came back from Biden, bam, the writer is on the green wagon. And I thought to myself, what the fuck is this? This was a guy who was completely committed to the Eskom fleet and the way Eskom is operating, and he was not pro-green because green cannot supply base load, and he knows it.
Yeah.
And yeah, all of a sudden, pop, he's on green. They do a stupid thing, Komati power station, perfectly functioning power station, 1,000 megawatt hour. They shut Komati down, and they paste the whole Komati power station surrounding, full of solar panels, 500 megawatt hour. But they haven't got batteries for it yet. So that 500 meg is available roughly for about 3 hours in the middle of the day. The rest of the day, it's like this, and then the sun goes down and it's gone.
Well, if it rains, you get nothing.
Which is a stupid thing for me. Why shut down? And then today I had a discussion here. The guy was here. My neighbor is quite good with the solar stuff and so forth. And I have now been convinced that I need to go solar. And but not for the normal reasons. I can discuss that if you want to. But the fact is that I said to him, and he was talking about the power stations are being now overrun. They're running at full capacity. And I said to him, you must just understand about a power station. It's a lot of mechanical stuff. There's a lot of pipes and water and shafts and bearings and turbines spinning and shit like that.
Yeah.
All mechanical. It's mechanical things. Nothing theory. There's no theory about it. The reality is you need a certain amount of fire to create a certain amount of heat to generate the steam that drives the generators.
Right.
Now, if you keep on stoking the fire out of control, yeah, of course, you're going to damage the longevity of the boiler tubes and things like that, but that will be over time. In the short run, that generator can't run faster than it was designed for.
Yeah.
It's got physical limits. So there's no such thing of overrunning a coal power plant fucking over 100%. That's bullshit. You don't do that. Because the machines has been developed and designed to have that capacity. And if they properly maintained, they can run for years like that. So don't fall into this trap and say, are they now overrunning the power stations? Because that is bullshit. What is most probably happening now is that some of the units that were not used for whatever reasons are brought back onto line. And then we have that absolute, I'm going to call it a hilarious situation at Medupi, where all the turbines are shut down. 6 of them. Why? Because the Department of Environmental Affairs shut them down. Because of the quality of the smoke from the smokestacks. The most modern and biggest coal-fired power station is producing 0. And then they get this marble polishing minister of electricity of them. And he makes a statement today, or yesterday, that the 4 units at Medupi will be fired up before December, and the 5th unit will come online in January. Now, it was there at Medupi where that pipe, I don't know if you've seen the images, but there's a filtration system that purifies the smoke and take the sulfur out of the air, out of the exhaust fumes.
Yeah.
Before it goes into the pipe stack. And that pipe broke off.
Wasn't
sabotage.
sabotage.
That fucking pipe. Huh?
Wasn't that
I don't know what it
sabotage?
was, but they say it will take a year to fix it.
Wow.
And on that tweet where they made that announcement, I said, what the fuck is this? A year to repair a pipe. The Russians fix a blown up bridge in 6 weeks.
Yeah.
What is this bullshit?
That
year
comes,
to fix a pipe.
That comes back to my argument about the hotels where you've got a white person overseeing
but
and
now
where you
there's
don't have
more
one.
shit coming out of Medupi. Now they're talking about poor design, poor material use. But the Medupi and Kusile plans were drawn up by the old Eskom engineers. And when they decided to build it, the ANC, through Chancellor House, interfered extremely in the designs. They went and they bought that Hitachi boilers from Australia.
Yeah.
And, which is verticals.
And just on that,
Guys from Eskom said to them, the Eskom engineer said to them, listen, those vertical things is not going to work here. for the simple reason of the quality of our coal. All that's going to happen here is you're going to have a huge buildup of ash and debris in the bottom of those things, and they're going to fill up, and that's it. And then you've got to shut the thing down, and it's going to take months to clean it out and repair it and get it going again, just to happen again after a year. Vertical boilers cannot work in South Africa.
Just on that point. Just on that point, Colyn. Hitachi are basically like a business arm of the ANC. And they made a huge amount of money. The ANC made a huge amount of money through their involvement with that deal. Back to you.
Yeah, but not from Hitachi is not the arm of the ANC. Chancellor House is the arm.
Yeah, well,
and Chancellor House connected up with Hitachi.
Yeah, but that's still tied up with ANC.
Yeah. No, I just want just get the thing straight that the ANC does not own Hitachi. The ANC owns Chancellor House.
Yes, but it's that business arrangement.
With that huge power station that is not supplying anything to the grid. They're bringing it back on. They're working now to get it back going, but they've got design flaws there that needs to be rectified. So there's a few things like that inside Eskom. And for me, this green plan that they're all on is madness, because it has been proven in Germany it doesn't work. It's proven in America that it doesn't work. I read an article about 2 or 3 days ago where an analyst did an analysis of all the wind farms across the globe. And he said that there are some of those wind farms that are now being decommissioned because they've reached end of life. But the horror part of it all is not one single wind generation operation in the world has made a profit.
Yeah.
Not one.
Yeah, it's a white elephant. Now look, I just want to...
They bring the green shit onto us, and they cart our coal out by the train lengths of trucks through Richards Bay. Yeah. And it goes to Europe, and it goes to China, and it goes to, I think, Canada. But the fact of the matter is, they are after our coal. But they have manipulated or twisted Cyril's arm to play along with that. Now, I did a skid mark a long time ago, last year, about what happened in Ghana. And I mean, that was a horror story, what happened there, Scott. In 2014, Ghana was exporting electricity to all its neighbors. And the Russians and the Chinese were busy helping the Ghanaians with 2 nuclear power plants. And obviously the fact that the Russians and the Chinese are, involved in it was a bee in the bonnet of the West. And the IMF came to Ghana and said, listen, we want you to consider to transform your energy system. And they gave them an obscene amount of money. And they turned green, all that cock, and at the same time, the NGOs from Soros and those were on the Ghanaian farmers to go, what do you call it? What is this so-called safe agricultural method? What do you call? What is it? What do you call that?
I'm sorry, I don't know. Is this aquaculture or something like that?
No. where you only use natural fertilizers.
Organic.
Like that. Organic.
Organic, yeah, okay.
They push the Ghanaian farmers to go organic.
Yeah.
The power grid collapse. The farmers can't get water because actually, incidentally, you need water to pump, electricity to pump water.
Yeah.
So they run out of water. And last year, gone up. Blackouts, total blackouts.
Yeah.
And famine. And the same thing happened in that eastern country. Which one is it that is so deep in the shit there? It's not Sri Lanka, is it Sri Lanka? No.
Sri Lanka, just south of India, which is in deep shit, yeah.
Yeah, Sri Lanka. They did the same thing there with the organic shit.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so those guys are down the drains. But then if you start looking, and I said it to this friend of mine this afternoon, you must just take note. All the countries that has got this serious energy problems, all of a sudden. It's amazing. China doesn't have an energy problem. Russia doesn't have an energy problem. Iran doesn't have an energy problem. India doesn't have an energy problem. All the energy problems are in the West. Why is that? But you see, and if you then see the absolute horrendous pressure under which the farmers are to push the farmers out of production. And you have to ask yourself, what is the reason for this? And I mean, Scott, I'm not a guy that you will very, very rarely get me to
I tell you what, Colyn, I tell you what, we're now moving into the one world government agenda area, and that's not our subject tonight. So I just want to pull us back to, we can cover that subject another time. I just want to pull us back to South Africa. To me, the canary in the cage is tourism. When I got on the plane from Dubai to South Africa, that plane was nearly empty. Nearly empty.
Yeah.
Now, this is a plane that you'd normally expect to be full of tourists coming to South Africa. Now, clearly, tourism is dead in South Africa, and if it wasn't
now is a good time to be in the Western Cape.
Now, hang on.
It is a damn good time.
Yeah, but
they've got fantastic weather, and they've got all those winter colors on the vineyards and all of those things. It's spectacular.
Yeah, but if it wasn't for the BEE and the blacks going to lodges and resorts and doing whatever they do there, tourism in South Africa would be completely gone. It would be dead. And that to me is the canary in the cage, because people in other countries are saying, we're not going to take the chance of going to South Africa because it's too dangerous, because there's electricity issues, and people living in South Africa need to understand that this is how the rest of the world is perceiving South Africa now. It's not a place to go to like it was pre-1994.
It's not a destination.
Yeah. Now, do you have a comment to make about how tourism, or the lack of overseas tourism, is going to impact the economy of South Africa?
If I talk about the Mpumalanga area only, Mpumalanga is severely dependent on tourism. And I mean, we've got the problems with the violence on the roads to the Kruger Park, which is turning guests away, and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the load shedding is making it awkward for the guest house owners and hotel owners to accommodate guests, because you don't want a guest that comes from Germany to sleep in your 5-star guest house, and he must every 4 hours, he's 4 hours without power, and he doesn't have warm water, and you must run generators and shit like that, and it's big. Not everybody can do it, so the smaller establishments are closing. Tourism is a major important component, but the unfortunate reality is that tourism cannot exist in a dysfunctional country.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else you'd like to add to that?
So you have this situation that the tourists are not there. So the guest houses and the hotels and the resorts, they are reducing staff.
Yeah.
So more unemployment. And, you know, if you take a high-end destination camp in, say, the Timbawati, if you have to shut that camp down due to a lack of guests, and you've got to shut it down for 6 months, the amount of dilapidation and degradation to the facilities in that 6 months standing empty is going to be horrendous.
Yeah.
So what is going to give those owners the inspiration to reinvest capital, but they're not sure that the tourists will actually ever arrive? And now we've got another bloody problem, and that is the collapse of the financial system in the West and the dive in the standard of living in the West. I mean, you take a country like England, where there are actual food shortages.
Yeah. Especially fruit and vegetable.
Yes, there are shortages. Now, last year I did a skid mark on the UK, and I said in the skid mark that by December, England is going to be a third world. Yes, I mean, you can imagine how the people shat on me about that. How can I make a statement like that?
Yeah.
And I said, but now, okay, let's just be objective. What is a third world? Not enough employment, not enough energy, not enough food. That's a third world.
Isn't it interesting?
Am I right or am I wrong?
Colyn, you're right. But isn't it interesting that Sina van Rensburg predicted that the United Kingdom would collapse completely?
Yeah, yeah, I know. Let me come back to that one. I'm a guy that don't really get into debates on religion and on these things like sinner, because many of those things are interpretations of people of what the original guy would have said. You get the same story with who's that other guy that everybody calls up every now and then? Nostradamus. And I read an article written by some professor one day about Nostradamus, and he said the problem with Nostradamus is that people are translating a lot of what he has said, and they are adding little bits of tails onto the shit to suit the circumstances.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Currently.
Yeah.
And then 99.9% of the people that are reading that clip that is now said to claim to be from Nostradamus cannot go and read it in the original language. Now with Sina van Rensburg, there's a lot of things that he has said, a lot of things. And if you take everything that he has said, a lot of the shit has not happened. Mm. But there's people that highlight some one-liners, paragraph here and there and there, and then they bring it into relation with the current circumstances, and then they propose to us that, okay, but sinners saw this. I had an interesting argument this afternoon with a guy on Twitter about the Russians, because it is my opinion that Russia is going to end up to be the final custodian of good conservative values.
I agree.
And there's a lot of people that get hell of upset when I say that. And when you say that, they get upset. But the reality is, go and look at the Russian society and you see that there's none of that gender stuff there and nothing of that. And families are protected and families are promoted and they look after their children. They look very well after their children. It's a Christian country, but they've got other religions there and people has got the freedom of religion and things like that. It's a properly functioning society. We in the West, our problem is that we didn't have much information about Russia.
Yeah.
The information that we got was skewed. It's like what we get on China. You know, they tell you here, a few weeks ago, the Western press were telling us that the Chinese government is going to be brought down by those protesters. And then one night I sit and I listened to some guys in a debate, and the one guy lives in Shanghai. And he says, you know, they say that the government is going to fall. Now, let me bring this into perspective for you. We are 47 million people in this city. This protests that they are referring to happened at one university, and there were 10,000 protesters. Now, Scott, what is 10,000 protesters in a country with 1.6 billion people?
Yeah.
So it's always stories and bullshit. Now, my shock was the speed at which the UK collapsed.
Yeah.
And I've done a skid mark on, and where I said that Cyril is planning to collapse South Africa the same way that the USSR collapsed.
Now, Colyn, just hold that thought, because I want to take it on from there. I just want to cover a couple of things again that you spoke about. And when you spoke about Russia basically having the moral compass today, isn't it interesting how the West is supporting Zelensky in Ukraine, where he is now trying to shut down all the Orthodox churches? I mean,
yes,
that's what's happening in Ukraine right now. And also, I just want to make the point that Uganda has now outlawed gay behavior. If you get caught in that sort of behavior, you actually go behind bars. Now, the West, in response, has basically threatened Uganda with sanctions because it's taken that stand, which just kind of shows...
I handled that thing one of the white skid marks.
Yeah, but it just shows the lack of moral compass in the West. Now, I want to just wrap up this live stream. We've been going for about 90 minutes, but before I do, I just want to say that Marlena's just put a message in the side chat saying that Dr. Peter Hammond had an emergency which he had to attend to. So I'm not sure what that emergency was, but that's why Peter couldn't join us tonight. Now, just in wrapping up this live stream, because I want to keep it on South Africa, I'm of the belief that when Eskom does collapse, and I believe it will collapse this year, I believe there will be a blackout. Once that blackout happens, your power is gone for months in the best case scenario, if they are ever able to get something like that going again. And if you've got this demented ANC mafia government running the scene, that ain't gonna happen. Now, I'm of the opinion that if Eskom, or when Eskom does go down, there's going to be anarchy in South Africa. Total anarchy. What are your views on what will happen in South Africa if Eskom collapses completely?
You're not going to like my view, but let me put it to you this way. How does the new world... Okay, you have to keep this now in relation with what I said that Cyril is going to collapse the country like the
Well, that's
USSR.
why I brought up this point at this time. Yeah. Go back to you.
Now, part of that collapse, a major part of that collapse, is the transfer of the really valuable state assets to the oligarchs. It must happen, because otherwise...
You mean like Patrice Motsepe?
Yeah, there's a few of them.
Yeah.
And Ruperts and all those guys. So the oligarchs are already visible. And you can see certain things that has landed in their hands already. But you must understand one thing, Scott, and that's what I said to my neighbor this afternoon. For this new world globalist plan, they need chaos in South Africa. Okay. Because it's in that chaos that they can steal like hell. That's what they did in Libya, that's what they did in Syria, that's what they did in Iraq, and that's what they done in Yemen, and that's what they did in Afghanistan. And that's what they're doing now in Ukraine. In the chaos, there's a lot of theft of the natural resources. And that's exactly what they did at the end when the USSR collapsed, and Putin witnessed that. Now, the other thing is, this globalists, World Economic Forum, whatever, they need to be able to have some form of control of this uncontrollable masses. They will never allow the Eskom grid to collapse completely. Because if that grid collapses, internet is gone, cell phones is gone, every line of communication is gone.
And central bank digital currency won't work.
The banks is gone with its central digital currency, or what the fuck they want to call it. Everything is gone. You won't, because 99% of the people work with a damn card, man. No cards will work. Nothing will work. I said to the guy this afternoon, to say, you're going to take your house solar off the grid. And I said, think about this. Okay, now you're now fairly self-reliable as far as your electricity is concerned. Your fridges are running and your lights are burning and crap like that. Apart from the fact that you're going to be a target in that dark pool, is the reality. Where are you going to get food? There's going to be nothing in the supermarkets, because no deliveries is going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the delivery trucks will just be looted and plundered and things like that. So everything is going to collapse. Now, and I said to him, think about this. You're traveling down the Roaring Forties. You're a very adventurous sailor, and you're sailing down the Roaring Forties because you want that rough seas. And you bliksem off the boat at night. It's going to be immaterial whether you have a life jacket on or not a life jacket on. The advantage is when you don't have the life jacket on, it's going to be over quickly. With your life jacket, it's going to take 3 days to die. But you die, you're going to die. That's it. It's the end of you. So, to think that a solar installation in your house is going to carry you through that mayhem, that's a disaster. And incidentally, I spoke about it in my skid mark this morning about this. There's this thing that was spread among the people about that black guy that was burning Bibles. And then there was a voice clip with it, with a guy making a hell of a lot of highly religious utterances, and but in any case. And I said, first point. If you look at that video, there's 4 or 5 people standing there doing that crap. Secondly, if you listen to this voice clip that is attached to it, what does that guy want me to do? Does he expect me to now go, get up, take my gun, get into my car, and drive into the streets and start killing black people. Every black person I see, I shoot. Is that what they want us to do? Because they come with small incidents like that, and then they whip the onlookers, the casual onlookers, into a frenzy. Because that guy is insinuating that small, mentally disturbed Tokolosi bush prophet is going to influence the whole black population of South Africa, which is total, utter bullshit. Point number one, I personally know black guys that if they were there where that guy was burning the Bibles, they would have thrown him into the fire. So they're using this. There are a certain section in the community that are using this blackout ghost, this blackout monster, to achieve their own goals. But the reality is, Eskom has got more than enough base load So this story of the grid collapsing. Now, the dangerous thing that we have is agents like that KW Miller. That guy works for the American government. He's involved with the CIA.
Isn't he the Rothschilds?
And he's involved. Huh?
Isn't he with the Rothschilds?
And he's involved with that other crowd that are notorious for arranging regime changes in countries. Now, KW Miller is whipping the people up to become, to commit basically treason.
Yeah, I don't follow him at all.
That's what he's actually trying to do.
Yeah.
But behind it all is a plan for the capitalists to get their hands on the Eskom fleet.
Now, just hang on there,
That
Colyn.
is what they are after.
Colyn, hang on there a second. My understanding is that the Rothschilds have actually bought Eskom. They already own it.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. That's just like these guys that are promoting this story that South Africa is a company that the shares is on the New York Stock Exchange. I mean, good luck with that one.
Well, there is a company registered on Wall Street called the Republic of South Africa. That's a fact.
Yeah.
You can look it up.
Okay, but where's the balance sheet?
Well, if you're sort of in that league, if you're the elite, you don't need it.
The fact of the matter is that I say Cyril wants to collapse the country.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is going to most probably become, this is a shocking one, and I'm going to say, but they actually don't care if the country then breaks up into 10 or 12 or 16 republics. Because they've got all the major national assets in their hands.
Yeah.
So whether you're the Republic of Stellaland or the Republic of Nelspruit or the Republic of Durban or the Republic of what, you're going to need electricity and you're going to get it from Eskom.
Yeah.
They're going to sell it to you. You're going to need water, they're going to sell it to you. You're going to need, you want to use the roads, you're going to pay toll. You want to use the rail, you're going to pay for it. Things like that.
Yeah.
So that is exactly how the USSR was collapsed. Now, a problem that is currently, and not many people really talk about it, is the situation with the mines in South Africa. There's been a massive divesting in mines. All the really big international players has pulled out of the mines because they are totally against giving their shares to some BEE operator.
Yeah.
So they just pull out. because so their investment is down the tubes. So there's a lot of these things in the background. And the ANC government doesn't have physical control over the country. They've got administrative control. And they've got administrative control because there are political players that are allowing them to have the control. But I've said it, my personal opinion is the only way out for South Africa is a collapse of the republic and break it up into a lot of independent republics. And
I totally agree with you. Break the ANC's hold over the country is what needs to be done. Yeah.
Yes. But now we've got this problem. For me, it is quite obvious that there is a section of the ANC, Scott, that is actually divorced from the whole ANC. That elite ANC is separate from the mass ANC.
Right. The Ramaphosa.
And I spoke to a guy many years ago when COPE was formed and so forth, and we sat one night and we talked about it, and he said the big reason why the ANC has not actually physically split yet, because there is the fractures is visible to anybody. The reason why they haven't decided this is it and split it is they cannot agree on who's going to take the brand.
So
understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But how do we stop this happening, Colyn? How do we stop this happening?
We shouldn't stop the ANC fracture from happening.
No, but they're basically stealing everything. How do we stop them stealing everything?
Yeah, collapse the republic. That's the only way that can really stop them. But now they've got this time bomb that we spoke about right in the beginning. This social generation, which is literally millions of people.
Yeah.
And those, let's call it the women that are doing the breeding, are totally out of control and uncontrolled. And no economy can grow fast enough to accommodate that growth. But they don't have the guts or the political will to do something to stop it.
Right.
And that portion is this lawless, absolutely maniacal barbarians that is going to make the country fall in any case.
Yeah.
And the morning is going to come. And that morning is not far. I'm not going to guess a timeline on it, but I would say not further than maybe 2 years, when the government's not going to be able to pay the grants. They just won't have the money to pay.
Then it's all over Red Rover, because you have a lot of hungry people.
Then it's done. The moment that happens, it is over. And, I said to my wife last night that there's people that they make all these dangerous statements about how the whites are going to be wiped out, and they get the white population into a frenzy and things like that. And they work from the assumption that the black population is a whole, which is totally crazy. The factions in the black populations are on par or worse than in the white populations.
Well, can I just add on to that? Colyn?
The Zulu nation is the biggest nation in population in the country. But they're not united as Zulus. There is so many factions in the Zulu nation.
Yeah, they are.
And then you must understand, there's the tribal lines And the tribal lines are extremely important in the black population.
Yeah, they are.
Tribes. And that is what I said in that one skit mark that I did where I talked about the borders of Africa that was drawn with rulers by guys sitting in London.
Yeah.
And they cut tribes in half, they cut nations in half, and things like that. And people ended up in one country that would never in their life associate properly. Now we see this thing with that Uganda leader and the gay thing. The reality is there's 9 other countries in Africa where gays has already been banned.
Yeah.
And that is a talk that everybody jumps around it. And I handled that in that skit mark that I made about objectivity.
Yeah.
And the thing is this. People they've lost respect for people. They don't respect people. When me and you start talking, and we sit down and we're having a beer, there's something in me that tells me I must not badmouth Australia. Australia is your country. You are proud of your country. And I cannot sit here and degrade your country and expect you to just accept it. It doesn't work like that. You look at what happens in international diplomacy. They have no respect for anybody. They just know that they do what they like. And they send a delegation to, say, Saudi. And in that delegation, some of the chief people in the delegation is chicks. Now, you get into Saudi. That is a country where traditionally there's a clearly defined role for women and for men. And each one of those genders has got its place in society. And there sits that prince. He is an Arab. He's a Saudi. He grew up in that country. He comes from a patriarchal household. And the West walks in with a chick, and he must negotiate with a chick for something.
Yeah. Now,
how will that go off?
Not
how
well.
Can that end? That Arab is a decent guy. He's got good manners, and he will not be disrespectful to that woman. But nothing that she says is going to go into his head.
Yeah. Now look,
you didn't want to listen to it. And this is the problem that we have today. Yeah. And in South Africa, when the shit really hits the fan, it is my opinion that the slaughtering is going to be black on black.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, and I've got to say, I've got to wrap up this live stream because we've been going for nearly 2 hours. But I just want to say that, just to your point, the hatred between the Xhosa and the Zulu people is huge, and
it's tangible.
Yeah, it is tangible, and one of the big issues is that the Xhosa young men get circumcised, whereas the Zulus don't. And according to the Xhosa, if you're not circumcised, you're not a man. So where this becomes a huge issue is that when they have a fight, a Xhosa and a Zulu, the Xhosa always says, you're not a man, you're not circumcised. So they're calling the Zulu a boy. And that does not go down well. And there's a huge amount of resentment between these two huge tribes in South Africa. So to your point, when anarchy happens... When anarchy happens,
and you know that the Zulus
there's going to be a huge war.
As shit carriers.
Yeah. And
you know where that comes from?
Where?
When the British settlers settled in the Eastern Cape.
Yeah.
They wanted people to run the bucket toilet systems.
Yes. Yeah.
And the Zulus refused to do it.
Yeah.
And the Xhosas did it.
Yeah. Mate,
And the Zulu said, yeah, you are shit carriers, that's what you are.
mate, look, I've got to wrap up this live stream because it's been fascinating, really good talking to you again, and it's just a shame that Dr. Hammond had an emergency, so couldn't join us. But we'll do that another night.
You know, if I was any lesser of a man, I would actually feel bad. Because it's the second time that he chickens out when I'm on.
No, look, it wasn't chickening out the first time. That's to his situation. He had a stroke, which is not a good thing.
Explain it as you like. I'm talking about the perception.
Okay. Well, look, third time lucky. How's that?
Yeah. Now, Scott, I think and I want to end it on this. And this is what the message that I want to leave with you.
Go ahead.
When COVID happened and the lockdowns were implemented as brutally as they were, destroying and destruction of lives, livelihoods, families, family members split apart on the issue and shit like that. I said, what this is going to do, this is going to ignite nationalism in people. And not nationalism as in Americans for America. It's going to be Americans for Wyoming, American for Ohio,
Right.
American for Texas. And I said, this is what's going to happen. And it's going to happen in Europe, even more pronounced, because the European nations, the nationalist feelings, those societies, their culture is under severe pressure. First of all, the EU tried to make them all equal and started to dilute cultural differences. And then they brought those immigrants in.
Yeah.
And it was like throwing a firecracker into the braai fire,
Yeah.
And now they've got a major problem. So I believe that, and I said it to my wife just 2 hours ago. I said to her, I am 100% convinced that the Western world, take note, the Western world is so close to a revolt. America is on the verge of civil war.
Yeah.
And it's all about culture and values, value systems.
Yeah.
And the same is going to happen in Europe. And that revolt, if it happens, it will only end with all the politicians and all the elites, all these billionaires that are fucking our lives up. And it's got big plans of how to kill us and all of that, and how make us eat cockroaches and shit like that. All those guys, in other words, the whole WEF cabal and the politicians are going to go the way of Marie Antoinette.
Good.
That is the only thing that can really save the West.
Yeah.
The only thing.
Yeah.
Nothing else. And I'm open for, guys can differ from me, but that is what I see.
Yeah.
I see this United States of America breaking into pieces. I see Canada breaking into pieces. I see Europe breaking back, the EU, just falling apart. The problem in the EU is that the whole EU has become a very artificial thing, and that artificial thing was kept alive
Yeah.
by the money generated in Germany. And now that money engine is gone.
Yeah.
So they won't be able to maintain their social structure, all their social programs, things that people took for granted. It's just not going to be there. People are going to be hungry. People are going to be unemployed. The lifestyle dip. And I saw an article over the weekend of how much the lifestyle has already fallen in Germany. Now, Scott, in 2023, you sitting there in Australia, did you imagine 5 years ago that you're going to get to a point where you had to budget whether you're going to be able to pay your energy bill?
No. Now,
if anybody said it to you then, if I said to you 5 years ago, Scott, this government is going to lock us all up in our houses for 6 or 9 months, what would you have said to me?
Never happened. Now, mate, look, we got off the subject, and we could be talking for hours. I'm going to have to wrap up this live stream. I just want to say thank you once again for joining us tonight. And as I say, hopefully,
I don't say thank you for entertaining me.
Hopefully, third time lucky. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about that anymore. I've said what I wanted to say.
We'll share the joke when Peter's on. How's that?
But the reality is, Scott, apart from this dragon of a blackout for South Africa, the reality is there is dark days ahead for South Africa, and by dark days coming, there are forces that has got devious plans for us, for our country.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole world. I think the whole world is facing biblical times. I think that's what we could say.
Yeah. The thing is this, Scott. Why was the Chinese here 3 or 4 months ago with those, the Russians with those big bombers?
Yeah.
Why was those bombers sent to South Africa?
Good question.
Why?
Yeah.
To prove a point. That's all. But I have heard stories that they were on a mission and they bombed these terrorists in the northern part of Mozambique.
All right.
And on their way here, they came here to refuel and all of that. But they made a point to say to the West, don't think South Africa is out of our reach. And then, the next thing, that fleet exercises. I mean, South Africa's participation in it was a fucking joke, man. We were there just to be there.
Yeah.
The main thing was China and Russia. But the Russians had that Murova missile ship of theirs here and all of that. I've been trying to figure out how the hell did Zuma get us into BRICS? How? But I'm beginning to think it wasn't Zuma that brought us into BRICS. It was China and Russia that pulled us into BRICS.
Yeah. Anyway, look,
that's what I think.
Yeah, Colyn, we're now on 2 hours, and I'm gonna pull the plug on this because otherwise nobody will watch it. It'll be too long. Colyn, thank you so much for joining me tonight. And look, we'll have another one of these chats. But as I say, third time lucky. Hopefully, Peter will be there. Take care, buddy.
How many people watch this show?
Currently, there are 60 people on YouTube, and there would be several hundred on Loving Life TV, because we've actually got it playing through 2 different platforms.
Okay. Well, Scott, thank you for having me, and it was a pleasure. And enjoy your day down there under.
Yeah.
And I hope the Aussies wakes up before the WEF and America devours them, because I've got a very, very, very nasty feeling that the Americans is lining the Aussies up for a proxy war with China.
I would not be surprised. Anyway, look, keep going with your skid marks, and we'll chat soon. Cheers for now.
Right. Have a great evening.
Okay. Take
And
care,
thank
buddy.
you to all the viewers. Have a nice time.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, guys. That was, of course, Colyn Serfontein from Skid Marks. He's got his own YouTube channel, and I do put up some of his videos on Loving Life TV from time to time. And his entire Skid Mark series is going to be put up on our archives over a period of time, and that's something that Colyn is going to be working on. And this is where we're looking at going. We're looking at having more presenters coming on and making this a broader television platform with different perspectives and different points of view, which will hopefully create a huger audience, which is already happening, by the way. Please remember to register on lovinglifetv.com to be one of those people who are joining the TV program. And please remember to share this video. Please remember to like this video on YouTube. And above all, do not get that deadly you-know-what. I better not say that magic 3-letter word, because that might result in this 2-hour video being taken down by YouTube. Bye for now, and I'm going to go out with Hier Bly Ek Boer. And this is especially for Davy Oosthuizen, who I see is here tonight. Davy, it's been a long time since we've seen you around, and great to have you join us. Here comes Hier Bly Ek Boer. Take care, guys, and don't forget, tomorrow night we will be having another live stream at 8 p.m. and I'll be putting those live streams up later today for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Take care, guys. Bye for now.
Meer as 61,000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens vir ons gesterwe, sodat ons vry kan wees. Die is my land, die is my reg, hier is ek boer. Van stof is ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. Soos diep in die nacht sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en ek draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Soos 'n blaasom in die somer wat vreugde bring, my oupa wat maniekie kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande. Hier was hy boer. My wortels lê diep in die grond geplant. Ek sien soos my pa los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my reg. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Die sal kom, 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 die sal sal kom, die lief sal kom, die lief sal kom.